For that. For some strange reason, my microphone had decided it didn't want to work. I'm Chris. This is the Old Geezers show here on a number of channels, actually, obviously. The Old Geezers Diary on YouTube and Facebook and Homemade TV. So we're live on those channels. You can talk to us on those channels. So you can talk to us via YouTube, you can talk to us by Facebook, by comments and things. So any way you want to get in touch, I would love to hear from you. Here's a little digest of that. Phone, tablet, laptop, PC. You can be in the show as well if you want to. So I'll leave it to you. But get in touch. Let us know what you're thinking about what we're saying. We've got two topics today. And those two topics, well, the first one is this one. And I'm going to just show you a quick picture. There you go. It's, I guess, really just a waiting room for an A&E department. There's people queued up, they're holding their heads, they're sitting in wheelchairs, they're not well, and they need treatment. So we're going to talk about that this morning. And there's another topic we're going to talk about, which I think is one that I was going to do more research on, but I've got a problem with that. I want to talk to you about it first and get your feedback. If you have views, if you have opinions on this one, I'd like to hear it. I'm not going to mention it now, because I haven't done my proper research, but I will come back to it later in the show and get you to help me, if you would. Okay, so let's just have a look back at that A&E thing. There we go. There are people there queuing up for A&E. And what's the real story behind this one? Well, this is the real story behind this one. This is a graph that was prepared by the Guardian newspaper and published, I think, yesterday, showing how long you may expect to wait at an A&E department. These figures were actually run from October, November, and December last year, and the worst period was December. But you can see that there's a sizable difference between younger people and older people. I've tried to get to the bottom of this to a degree, but I regret to say that I cannot. So sooner or later, maybe we'll discover what the kind of issue is. But I have to say, if we can't, it'll be a bit annoying and embarrassing, but we'll do what we can. Okay, so what I want to talk about is just what you need to expect, because it transpires that if you're under 20 years old, you can go into an A&E and your average wait is going to be 5 hours. If you're under 40, your average wait may be up to 8.5 hours or longer. But once you get above 60, then it all goes kind of pretty aggressive in terms of waiting time. And the waiting time you can expect, as you can see, is around 13.5 hours, going up to 16 hours for over 80s. Now, I want to ask a question. I don't know the answer. I've asked the question of a couple of people, and I'm going to ask a couple more. Is there an issue where older patients are triaged later, or is this just a problem with more of those people having to go into hospital and therefore, I think it's going, and therefore having to kind of wait longer? The question that really I need to ask someone, and I don't know quite who to ask, but the question that I need to ask someone is, when we look at this one here now, what we're looking at really is kind of a number, just a number, 16 hours, 13.5 hours. Are those numbers just to be seen and released, or are they talking about waiting for a bed? I suspect that the difference in the numbers is really between the younger people who get a dressing or get something done quite quickly and are then released, or the older people who are much more likely to have to go into hospital and therefore are much more likely to have to sit in A&E waiting for a bed. Let me tell you, I've done this myself on 3 occasions this summer. I had a horrible repetitive infection that laid me seriously low. And the last time I was admitted to hospital, I was actually waiting for about 13 hours overnight, and it was horrifying. I really didn't like it at all. I was dumped in a little tiny, very cold room and was really left and ignored. And that was horrendous. If I was doing the old geezer show at the time, I would have done a show from the hospital and got the ire of the NHS landing on my head. But having said that, there you go. What are we saying? We are saying really that the numbers that you need to expect are horrendous. And I would like to get you, if you have been in hospital lately in A&E, to tell me what your experience is. Because if we can get some actual experiences, I'd love to hear those. Who have we got there? Right, Dylan. Why do I think it's so bad? No, I think it is short staff, essentially, and I think it is constant cuts. I don't think the strike has got a lot to do with it, to be honest with you, because these figures are actually going back to, as I said, October, November, December. So that was before the worst of the strikes. Take that and read it as you will, Dylan. It's quite an odd one, isn't it? Really, I do feel that the biggest problem that the NHS has is that they've had effectively, with the Conservative government, 12 years of cutbacks. So stuff has been cut back all the time. The money has been cut back. The staff have been cut back. And in reality, I think that it's just suffered all the time. And the staff are suffering. I feel very, very sorry, to be honest with you, for NHS staff. If there are any NHS staff there, I think they're magnificent people from the bottom to the top. I'm not sure about the management because I think they live in a different world. But generally, I think the staff on NHS do a terrific job. They really are superb and they do a great job. But there you go. But in general terms, no, I think it is due to the fact that money has been taken away. Exactly. No, I think you're quite right. That's a good one. Personal opinion there from Dylan. Daniel, sorry. Sorry about that, Daniel. Yeah, kids in the 70s, 80s, and 90s used to aspire and want to be nurses and doctors. And I think you are very right about that. I think there's some interesting demographics there. And I think there's some interesting ethnic things in there as well, because a lot of our British people who have maybe an Asian background, very aspirational families. I'm hugely impressed with Asian families or Asian origin British families, because the families inspire the kids and push the kids a bit harder than we do. My honest feeling for the last few years is that we've kind of let our kids do essentially what they want to do. And although many kids do work hard and do their very best to get to uni and stuff like that, I think the reality is that they get a better push in life and a better start in life in some instances from British Asian families. The reasoning being, I think, because those mums and dads have worked incredibly hard to get where they are, and there we go. Now, however, especially if you speak to teachers, kids are looking for a quicker route to fame, Instagram models, YouTubers, etc. Yeah, you're very right. I have to say that as someone who is a YouTuber and has done a lot of video reporting over the years, a lot of young people come up to you and say, put me on TV. Because I've had my periods when I walk around with a big camera on my shoulder and people say, put me on TV. And I think that is really a bit sad, because that ain't the way you get on TV. The way you get on TV is that you've got a degree and you can talk for England, which is, there you go. I haven't got the degree. I can talk for England. So where are we going? So we're getting a good conversation here, I have to say, going with Daniel. Yep. I guess you're right. I guess this is getting complicated. Do you know what? Darren. Hey, Darren. Nice to see you there. Yes, indeed. I have to stop to read this because this is quite carefully. Yeah, it's well written, actually. Nice to hear from you, Darren, I have to tell you. Yeah, excellent. Now, I'm going to say to you out there, read this because I think you need to. I think this is a nice piece, and I think Daniel's piece is a nice piece as well. We're getting some good contributors here on the Old Geezer Show. I love you both. You're doing a terrific job in explaining things as you see it, which is sometimes in part not my viewpoint, but I'm delighted to see this. And I like what Darren is saying, and I like what Daniel's saying. So, okay, yeah, I think that's right. I think we actually have to do what I'd call a root and branch actually overhaul of this. And what we need to do is get to grips perhaps with the fact that the people who are doing the work, the government is ignoring the government and possibly the employers and anybody who funds this kind of thing are ignoring the fact that people live in the real world. We have to go out and do the job we can do. I know a fair few carers, and a lot of those carers love their jobs. I'm not messing about. They love their jobs. They love who they deal with. They like their customers, their clients, their patients, whatever you might call them. And I do know that carers are leaving and going to work in other jobs. They're going to shops. They're going to supermarkets. It is a serious cause for concern. And the reality is that what we've got is a government that wants to cut things all the time, cut. And they're cutting the health services, and they're cutting the carer money, and they're cutting the money that pays the staff who work in government-funded enterprises like schools, like hospitals, like essentially the care sector, because the care sector largely depends on money that comes from various local authority, i.e. ultimately the government source. So it's a really interesting one, isn't it? What else have we got from Daniel? I think let's just have a look. Yes, I think you're quite right. I think that's true. But I think it is a yeah, I think you're quite right. We have to address this one, don't we? But the problem that we've got, Daniel, is that the money that goes into a lot of care comes from the local authority. Local authorities fund care for many care home customers, clients, residents. A lot of that money comes from local authorities, and therefore, if that were to go up a bit and be reflected in the pay that carers get to some degree, I do understand what you're saying completely. And the care industry, should that be part of the NHS? I wouldn't mind if it was, to be honest with you, from a personal point of view. But from the general point of view, it's an interesting one. We are going to have to come back to this and do some more on this, because from my viewpoint, I think we've got a really major concern going here. Let's see what we've got here. What is my opinion of the debate of charging people a small fee to attend their GP? Honestly, I'm against it. I can understand it, but I'm against it because let me give you both angles. One, I'm against it because it changes the whole basis on which the NHS works, which is free at the point of delivery. So in other words, all the healthcare that you go for is free. If you start to charge for one bit, then you're probably going to start charging for another bit. It might be easier. Then you might be able to charge for another bit. And so until eventually you're going in there and saying, hello, I've come to see my doctor, here's 20 quid. And your doctor says, well, I'd like you to go and see the hospital. That's another 25 quid. And the surgeon or the consultant in the hospital says, well, we need you to do this treatment and that treatment. That one is, they're all state supplied, funded, but we need an extra bit of money on it. So that operation is going to be 100 quid and things like that. I can just see it as being a slippery slope. Well, James, I don't mind you saying that. You can say what you like. As long as you keep your language moderate, I'm delighted. But in reality, I think there's a viewpoint there. So there is a viewpoint there, Daniel, and I don't mind. It goes either way. But I do think the free at point of delivery is the whole thing with the NHS. And once we get away from that, I think it will be another step in the destruction of the National Health Service. Where we go from here, I don't know. I think everybody's got their own view, but I think we ought to start working out ways that we actually get. Let's get rid of that. There we go. We've got to get ways in which we actually deal with this better. And I think the way we deal with it at the moment, what we got there? Yeah, well, I think that's fine, Richard, but as long as you can afford it. I think the problem we have in this country at the moment is that so many people can't afford it. I can't afford private healthcare, although I have to tell you, as you realise, I'm an old geezer anyway. And what am I going to say at this point? I'm going to say probably I haven't got too much left to go. And the last time I went to a dentist, I went privately because I couldn't get it done, what I wanted done in the way I wanted it done, with an NHS dentist. So there you have it. It's an interesting one, isn't it? But I couldn't begin to afford going to a private doctor. And bear in mind, Richard and James and Daniel and Darren, we are only looking here at older people. I know some of you guys are only youngsters. I mean, 40 or 50, for goodness sake. Do remember that we are talking about older people, people of, let's say, over 60, and say that one of the things that we need to remember is that there is a big lump. There are about 11 million older people, people over 60, 65 in the UK. And I think we have to remember that a big lump of those, and we're talking 3 or 4 million, are really seriously hard up. So where do we go with that one? I don't know. We're going to go on to that. Now, what we've got at this point is an interesting argument. Let's see what we've got there from another. Mental health care in the NHS is rubbish. They never help me. Yeah, I go with that. I think that the mental health provision in the NHS is not working well. And honestly, JB, I think the reason for that is because it's been underfunded for so long. We need to actually stop doing the thing with the Conservative Party, which has constantly said we want to cut taxes. Oh dear, we want to cut taxes. Oh dear, we want to... Because the other half of cutting taxes is saying we'll have to cut services because we've cut taxes. So from my point of view, yeah, I fully agree with you. I think mental health care is a nightmare for many, many people. And we'll do a piece on that, I think, quite soon. Come back to us, JB, and I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to drop me a line privately and just give us a little bit of kind of background on the mental health situation, because I don't have the facts and I'd love to hear from you. Look, I think we're going to come back to this one because it is obviously a serious cause of concern for a huge number of people. Me too, I have to tell you. We're going to look into this and get a bit more stuff going on it and get a few more people talking to us. And we'll try and get the originators of this story from my point of view. Let's go back to them and just look at this one. There we go. Let's just go back to that and just bear that one in mind. This is talking, we're really talking about these waiting times. What are we going to do about it? Bear in mind that the government have said that they are going to buy 800 new ambulances, some of which replace old ones. So it's not an extra 800. We don't know how many extra it is. They've said that. And they're going to put in 5,000 new hospital beds. Like that. But I think not. I think the reality is going to be that they may buy the beds. They may even be able to find somewhere to put them. Maybe you'll be in a tent if you go in. But the truth is that they need probably loads of new nurses to look after those beds, and care assistants and healthcare assistants and cleaners and caterers and God knows what else. So I think that the reality is that we need to look at this one hard and hard and hard and see where we go. There's a good piece here from Tom Chambers. I think that's excellent, Tom. I don't follow politics or anything, but the NHS has been there all my life. I've struggled with alcohol for years, but they always help me, and I think that is superb. Well done for saying that, actually, Tom. I'm a big fan of the NHS. That's not this one. I want to see the NHS continue, not as it is now, but as it was 10 or 15 years ago, before the Tories started cutting the bottom out of it. There you go. That's my honest opinion. So there you have it. Okay. I'm going to stop the discussion at the moment, unless you have something else to say in the next 3 or 4 minutes. The reason being that I want to move on to another subject, and I want you to stay with me if you would. And let's just catch this one. Thank you, UK for NHS. And I'm Nigerian, came to work here. Right, so I understand. Excuse me for a moment. Good Lord, it's my other half. Hello, Dot. Hello, sweetheart. We're still broadcasting. I'm gonna be here for another 3 or 4 minutes. Do you want to pop into a shop for 10 minutes?
Yeah, I think I can manage that.
I think you can manage that. There you go. Okay, so that was my other half, the lovely Dot, who is she's just been to the hairdressers, and I promised I'd go and pick her up. So so there you go. So we're just going to round this conversation off, but we will come back to this. Watch out for this in the next 3 or 4 days, because I think and Daniel says, hi, Dot. She'll love it. Thank you, Daniel. We'll come back to this in the next few days, because I think this is so important to get people's feelings out there. There are lots of feelings. There are lots of comments. And here on the Old Geezer Show, we don't have a problem with listening to what you say. I don't have all the answers. Hopefully, we'll try and get hold of more people who do have some of the answers and talk to them. Now, before we go, I want 2 or 3 or 4 minutes of your time, 2 or 3, I guess, to ask you a question. Did you see the Emily Attack show on TV last night? I'm sad to say I missed it, but I will try and come back to it. Well, I will try and come back to it. And everything's going on. Let me start again. Did you see the Emily Attack show on TV yesterday? I missed it, but I'm going to try and watch it today. I think it's going to be hard reading, but there you go. So the truth, I think, on this one is that there is an awful bit of culture going on in our world, which is that men apparently are sending young girls, schoolgirls, obscene pictures of themselves. Pictures of themselves in the nude, pictures of themselves masturbating, pictures of themselves that are just filth in reality. And grown-up men of all ages are sending these kind of photographs to young women. What the idea is, whether it's just to give themselves a cheap thrill, which I think it is, whether it's to, I don't know, hurt and embarrass those young women, I don't know. I want to know more, to be blunt with you. And the thing I want to do is ask parents, mums or dads or grandmas or grandpas, if this is happening to your daughters. I actually want to know. And the reason I want to know is because we've got some suggestions of how we can maybe change that. And because I'm a private little person who does stuff that I believe is important, we've got a solution and we're going to suggest it, and we might just try it. So if you've got a daughter, granddaughter, niece, whatever, who's been a victim of this kind of online obscenity, I really want to hear from you. Get in touch with me on a private message. I really want to hear from you and know what is going on with this one, because I think it's absolutely bloody awful. And I don't think that we should put up with this as an acceptable form of dealing with life. Okay, I'm going to say thank you so much for watching if you have been. If you're catching this on catch up, I hope you find the show interesting. Don't hesitate to make comments. Don't hesitate to send me a direct message. We will come back to this topic in the next 2 or 3 days, I promise, and we'll have a further discussion about this, because we really need to get a handle on it. And just going back to the comments, people like that need sorting out. Well, they need resolving. Let's be honest, JB. They need nicking and putting in prison or something. I think that's the reality. I will give you my opinion, to be honest with you. And my opinion, here we go. Are you ready? My opinion is that all we should do with these photographs that they send young women is send them to these men's wives and partners and say, do you know what he's doing? Because I think that would probably put a nail in it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I have to tell you that I really enjoy this show. Don't forget, if you actually want to be online on air, you can be. You only need a smartphone or a tablet or whatever. Get in touch with me via a private message. There is a phone number in the show at the beginning of the show. You can leave a message on there and I will ring you back. So see where you go. Okay, I have to say that's me done for. We've been online for about 25 minutes and we haven't resolved everything or anything, but we have got, I have to tell you, we've got a little bit down a view to having a proper discussion about the stuff that happens in our world, and the stuff that happens in our world that I don't like, and stuff that happens in our world that I'm delighted to see that you don't like. Thank you so much for watching the show. All I can say to you at this point is that my name's Chris. This is the Old Geezer Show. Thanks for watching, and I promise, see you soon.